Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also support me by buying a deck tech on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. More info in the video description. Hello everyone. Magic the Gathering is a game with well over 20,000 individual game pieces in it. It can be overwhelming to find the perfect 99 and commander for an EDH deck. Some players feel kinda trapped using EDH Rec because of this burden of knowledge. I lightly touched on and linked a tutorial for how to use Scryfall in my original deck building video. Ultimately though, I wanted to make my own condensed Scryfall tutorial that will take you from EDH Rec prison to incredibly adept at using Scryfall to build decks. Because I felt that there was not a super tight, compact tutorial that could bring people from not knowing literally anything about Magic at all to knowing enough to get you proficient with the tool in under 15 minutes. Really, proficiency is the only goal here. I'm not going to be whipping out some of the stuff that only true Scryfall wizards know how to do. Scryfall, like Magic, has several complicated functions that are reduced down to keywords. This is the first major thing to break open Scryfall as a resource. Feel free to open up Scryfall now and follow along. Let's say we wanted to make Jury master of the review. For him, we would need to find a lot of cards that sacrifice. If you just type sacrifice into the search bar though, only cards with sacrifice in the name will appear. This is because without the use of any of those special keywords I mentioned earlier, Scryfall will just take a look at your query and use it to find cards with that string of characters in their name. In this instance, we would want to use the most basic and important function, the Oracle text, shortened to O. Oracle text is just a fancy term Wizards of the Coast likes to use to describe the rules text of a card to confuse you. Even though O exists as a function, I recommend always using the FO function, which stands for full oracle, which will also search reminder text. For any function word like this, you must immediately follow it with a colon and then the query. So the query we actually want to find cards for Jury here will be FO sacrifice. This may have been predictable, but a lot of cards are returned for you with this simple search query. Like, way too many to be useful. So let's clean this search up a bit. Starting with the simple filter of format:commander. Format:commander will filter out any cards not legal in the commander format, including the arena-only card on screen here, cards not legal to begin with, like unset cards, and it will also filter out cards that are banned in commander that mention sacrificing, like Jeweled Lotus, Recurring Nightmare, or Hullbreacher. Wait, Hullbreacher? Yep. It doesn't mention sacrificing on the actual rules text of the card itself, but the FO function sees the treasure reminder text on Hullbreacher. If this was just O:, Hullbreacher would not be returned to us. Anyway, while Hullbreacher here is a wonderful visual aid to help explain the FO versus O function, it is a banned card. And even if that wasn't the case, blue isn't one of Jury's colors. To filter the colors of your search to just Jury's, you must type ID equals or is greater than Rakdos. Or if you're not comfortable with the colloquial names for the color combos, you can just use the color's initial. In this case, ID equals or is greater to RB would be the correct inquiry. This will search for all cards that have an identity that is red or black, or at least has one of those two colors in common. If you accidentally inverted this greater than to a less than, you would see a ton of cards that are red and black, in addition to cards that at least have red and black in their color identity, such as cards that are Grixis or Mardu. This is still 2,000 cards, which is definitely better than before, but it's still not easy to parse. It is at this point where I recommend, if you have no card knowledge at all, looking at the EDH Rec page for Jury. Now, I know I was bad-mouthing it earlier, but in all seriousness, EDH Rec is a tool, and tools are only bad if you use them badly. Find a few cards you like the look of on the Jury EDH Rec page. In this instance, I'll find one of each type of card commonly found in a sacrifice strategy: fodder, outlets, and payoffs. Jury is already kind of a payoff for this archetype, but a bit of extra help is never a bad thing to have. Pitiless Plunderer will be the card I pull from the page. Next is Visceraseer, one of the best sacrifice outlets there are in terms of rate and effect. Lastly is fodder, in this case in the form of Jadar, Ghoulcaller of Nephalia, which generates a token at the end of each of your turns that is basically free to sacrifice, since it will come back. Now, without using the EDH Rec page at all anymore, can you find more cards like these to build your deck around? If you, say, wanted to find more ways of generating tokens like Jadar does for Jury, all you would need to do is transplant some of Jadar's text into an Oracle search with the filters listed previously. In this case, we will use quotation marks around create a, which we stole from Jadar's rules text, and place an FO colon before it. This will search for all cards that say exactly create a somewhere in its full rules text. This is a lot of token generators, over 800 of them. If you want to specify creature tokens like the one Jadar makes, you can do the same search, but just steal the creature token part of Jadar's text and add it to the search under a different FO query. Now there are only 515 cards, far more manageable than the 20,000 we had started with. To sort these cards, you can either use the dropdowns at the top or use the sort colon function. In this case, sort colon MV will work well, since it will sort the cards by mana value. Now, a lot of these are one-off token generating effects, which isn't necessarily what Jury wants. He wants a stream of fodder to sacrifice. In this case, a little card knowledge is required. A card that generates a constant stream of tokens will likely have a triggered or activated ability that does so. In this case, to find cards with triggered abilities, FO when or FO at can be used. And in fact, you can use both at the same time if you put this entire function in parentheses, which will find cards that mention either when or at. The reason why we're using these words is because all triggered abilities in Magic the Gathering use when, at, or whenever. You can even see this here on Jadar. As for finding activated ability token generators, you'll have to use FO colon in quotation marks colon. This will find all cards with a colon in the text box, which denotes an activated ability. The cost will be before the colon and the effect after. If you find a card that makes a token after a cost is paid, in this case, you'll know you have found the right card. Now, some cards like Infestation Sage or Experimental Synthesizer will show up here. They do make tokens, and in some Jury decks, they can even be passable cards. Despite being here though, neither continually makes tokens, which hopefully you gleaned by reading the card's text. Cards like Piper the Swarm or Liliana's Devotee are both better, but are still lacking because they have a pretty poor rate for Commander. This is just something you have to learn with time. But, for example, compare them now directly with Ophiomancer, Loyal Apprentice, or Seer Slicer Goblin, all of which ask no mana of you to actually produce a token once they're in play. Okay, that's fodder generation for the sacrifice strategy solved. Now, if you want to keep up with this creature theme for Jury, can you now use what you know to find sacrifice outlets like Viscera Seer or a couple more payoffs like Pitiless Plunderer? Give it a try now. It really is as easy as stealing the wording from these cards. In the case of finding a payoff like Pitiless Plunderer, yes, whenever a creature you control dies is a fine bit of wording to steal. You will get served good cards for this deck with this search. But did you also think about how Jury is worded? FO colon whenever you sacrifice a creature returns a card you would have missed, Smothering Abomination, which is utterly insane in most decks that run this type of strategy. What about FO colon whenever a creature dies? Here are cards you would have missed, including strong ones like Black Market or Vein Ripper, all because these lack the you control clause the Pitiless Plunderer has. Seasoned Sacrifice players might have noticed that I didn't mention Blood Artist here, and that's because this format all-star has wording that mentions itself. In this case, it's important to break up the wording of a card. FO whenever, FO creature, FO dies. In this case, we'll have optimal results and return a lot of good cards for this deck. It's still easy to miss good cards for your deck using this method though. For example, Mayhem Devil can only be seen if you just do FO whenever, FO sacrifice, leaving out the creature and you specification, since he doesn't care what's getting sacrificed or by who to trigger. There are plenty more functions Scryfall has, like sorting by card's release date, showing only the first printing by is::first printing, sorting by set, type, or rarity. But these can all be found on the Scryfall syntax page in greater detail, since it's not really necessarily a good use of time to just list them out when the website already does this quite well. Knowing the syntax of Magic cards is just as crucial as learning the Scryfall search engine syntax, though. One of the best things about this game, in my opinion, is that all the cards are worded the same, which makes searching for them incredibly easy. Earlier, I covered how triggered abilities use the words at, whenever, and when. This is a valuable piece of syntax knowledge to know, as a lot of very impactful cards have these abilities. There is more important syntax to learn, however, which would take way too long to mention, and it's kind of a pointless endeavor since you can just learn Magic syntax by looking at cards and stealing their texts. But one I will cover, though, is replacement effects. To carry the example of our Jury deck, What if you wanted to run a damage doubler for his effect? Well, most of the time, a damage multiplier would be a replacement effect that uses the word if. So, that being said, a good starting search in my mind would be FO: if a creature would deal damage. Oops, that just returned Orbs of Warding. Let's do FO: if a creature you control would deal damage. Gratuitous violence. That would work well for Jury. Let's try FO: if FO: would deal, though. Here we can see some examples of cards that we would have missed if we didn't experiment with different wordings. For example, ones that specify non-combat damage, or just mention a source you control instead of specifically a creature you control. The point here is to make sure to always try different wordings, even if you don't know the card you're searching for even exists, and also to keep searching even after you think you found the card you want, just in case there's a better option. It is now, I ask you, to look at every single possible aspect of Jury you could build around. There's a few options, including his mana cost, creature types, power toughness, use of 1/1 counters, and death trigger. There's probably more, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is that a card you want to build around has multiple knobs that you can manipulate. For example, FO Shaman format commander returns 13 cards. One of these cards is Harmonic Prodigy, which is downright broken with Jury because he has 2 triggered abilities that are doubled by this card. This shows up on his EDH rec page though, so let me show you what makes Scryfall the better tool for making unique brews here. Taking a look at his +1/+1 counter synergies with FO: 1/1 counter, ID equal to or greater than red-black, FO a creature you control, format commander, we find Uncivil Unrest as one of the 14 cards returned. A card in only 75 of over 5.5 thousand Jury decks. Yet it's an incredible damage multiplier for the deck. The last major thing I want to cover now is Scryfall tags, which I feel are majorly underused. Now, it may seem what I'm about to teach you about tags invalidates what came before, but it's important to know how to find cards both ways, as Scryfall tags are community made, so mistakes are possible, and they're also incredibly narrow. At the bottom of a card's Scryfall page on the left column is the button Open Scryfall Tagger. There are art tags for the theme builders out there, but there's also the much more important Oracle tags that denote what a card is all about. For instance, Viscera Seer is tagged with a handy sacrifice outlet and free sacrifice outlet. You can actually search tags using the search bar using the term Outtake: then the tag in question. So Outtake: free sacrifice outlet will return all the cards similar to Viscera Seer in this way. This is a very helpful tool if you know what you're looking for. And that's it. That's about all the ways I use Scryfall for my day-to-day deck building. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and make sure to ask any questions you may have as well. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye! In this instance, I will take one card of each of the common... In this instance, I'll take one of each card... In this instance, I'll take one of each card... In this instance, I'll find one of each type of card...